So I'm back to working on the 6G3 here. Took a little bit of a break. I had to get through some gigs. And now we can go ahead and move forward. I spoke to the owner, and he is good with me replacing all of the resistors back with the original carbon comps where possible. And if those don't test okay, then we'll just try and source new old stock Allen Bradleys or the like. So that's good. I've already done the phase inverter section after we fixed the board conductivity issue. So this is all dialed. These original resistors, they all tested just fine. And then I did also talk to the owner about potentially stuffing the caps if he was interested in that, and he is. So we got the original caps here. These are your cathode bypass caps. 1, 2, 3. This is your bias cap right here. And then in the Doghouse, there's 4 caps in total, 3 16s and 1 8. Now, these are all Astrons, obviously. The 16s are not. But it looks like the date code to me, they're original. These are, I believe 240 is the manufacturer. And then 6314, so 14th week of 63, I think is how you read this. So I believe they're original, and they just used a different brand for that. So we're likely going to stuff all of these in the Doghouse included. I just need to make sure that modern caps will fit in these okay. But otherwise, everything's looking pretty good. So we're just going to go ahead, methodically move on down the line and take one resistor at a time. The bias supply will get a new diode as well. And we'll probably make this adjustable bias so that we can dial it in perfectly. And for the really important areas, I'm not going to be putting carbon comps back in like the resistors in the Doghouse. I'll be using these kind of modern Vichy power metal films, which are really high quality 2-watt resistors and compact. So that's the plan. Probably just time lapse through here, get to the work, and get to the end result. So I've got it stuffed, but just set up temporarily because I need to know what the bias resistor needs to be here. So I'm going to use the decade box for that to determine what I want to be the trim pot as well as the static resistor, and then I'll get it all placed. But for now, we're just going to go ahead and temporarily install the cap. Jumping in here a little out of sync, so I'm not sure how I'm going to edit this together. Long story short, working on the bias supply here, and I noticed it's not like the schematic. So the 6G3 schematic, see right here, shows that the bias feed is tapped off of the rectifier input. So the 300 and something volt AC, which is these 2 red wires right here. Then that goes through 100K dropping resistor, and that gets the bias supply in the right range for 6v6s. Well, not the case here. We can see it's got a dedicated bias feed, just like you get in the later blackface, silverface era amplifiers. And it's only about 40 volts AC here versus 340 volts. So a massive change. So with that in mind, I tried some different dropping resistor values. I was a bit confused at first. I put in 1K, which is what the previous tech had installed. So I just put that in as a baseline. And then I've already stuffed this cap with a modern MOD 50 microfarad cap there. And so I'm not sure if you guys saw that or not. Again, we'll see how the edit goes. But I'm using the decade box across the 2 legs. I'm using a decade box across the 2 legs to try and find the right value and then factor in a trim pot. I put a 25K trim pot in here originally, but that just doesn't work for this setup. I'd have to change this resistor around quite a bit to get that to work. So I'm probably going to throw in a 10K trim pot if I have it. And then just trying to find the right bias. So I've got the amp biased pretty good right now. We can see 20 milliamp for the hotter of the 2 6v6s. And I'm running it, the resistor here through the decade box is a 9K. So I figure a 10K trim pot halfway through the range, about 5K. And then I need roughly a 4 to 4.7K resistor in line with the trim pot. So that's kind of what I'm thinking here. That should give me a decent range. And then also not have to be at the extreme end of the pot to be able to get the bias right. So if we throw on a new set of 6v6s that might bias a little hotter or cooler, we'll have the range to do so. So that's the latest. We'll go and turn it off. We'll get rid of the voltage inside the amp and then remove my original trim pot idea and just kind of rework this. All right, we got a 10K swapped in there for the trim pot, put it at its halfway point, and I've got a 4.7K resistor through the decade box. We'll see if it biases okay. With that setup, we're looking for right around 20 milliamps, and anywhere around that range should be good. This looks pretty good. So I'll demonstrate as I turn this. We'll see the numbers start going up. So this is going to be hotter bias as I go this way. And then colder bias as I go this way. So I'm pretty happy with this. See the max we can do. It's plenty hot. And then we can go way cold as well. So this should be perfect. So we'll go ahead and grab a 4.7K resistor and get that swapped in, and then we should be done with the bias section. So now let's just make sure it's biasing okay. Now that's all done. Okay, so we want to look for just under 20 milliamps for 70% bias, which is a little bit hot. Probably go a little bit lower than that. So we are basically dead on the money. Look at that, 18.8. Look at that, 66%. That is perfect. Right in the range I'd want. And I've got plenty of range to go hotter or cooler with other power tubes. So that's money, super stoked. So with the bias done, we can go ahead and just focus on swapping all of the resistors and then the electrolytics that are left on the board. So just gonna time lapse that for you guys. Ran into a little snag here. So these are the resistors that were in the baggie, and we are missing some, including a 1 meg right here. So I'm gonna have to try and see if I have any in my part stash to continue with the Allen Bradleys all across the board. And then we also, see if it's here. Oh, we do have that. Okay, so this is the cathode resistor there, 2.7K. So that's good. And then we'll be stuffing a cap just like we did here for the cathode bypass cap. Okay, unfortunately, you guys missed most of the work because my memory card filled up and I didn't realize it when I was filming the time lapse. So I don't think you guys saw any of this stuff, including stuffing the caps themselves, which is a bit of a bummer, but the process is pretty straightforward. I've shown it on other videos in the past, but you can see this thing looks basically like it did originally, which is awesome. Exactly what we were going for. The only exception being this cap right here. But I did locate a 0.1 microfarad 200 volt cap to replace this. So we'll have an original blue molded in there. So then it'll look completely straight, which is awesome. This cap I think might be a replacement. It is vintage and old. I'm not sure. So that one doesn't really bother me because this looks just like the oscillator caps you get in Fenders. Same, looks like it might be a Sprague or something, but either way, that one doesn't really bother me, but the rest are all sorted out. I did have to provide one Allen Bradley resistor. The rest all came with the amp, which is great. And in my initial tests, seems there's not really any noise or anything, no pops, crackles, nothing like that. No, I didn't let it run for hours, so we'll have to confirm after I do that. But first glance, very, very pleased. So I'll give you guys a little bit of a close-up here. These stuffed caps. And then in the Doghouse, I will have a note, you know, saying they're stuffed, but it's pretty obvious, you know, when you tilt it to the side. It's more just a kind of a fun little cool thing to do. Shows you care. I think that's what it does. And then here we can see the bias as I knock over the wood. So adjustable bias, 2 Vichy resistors here. Just want ultimate stability with the bias supply. And then all of these stuffed caps are MODs inside, so nice MOD caps. So we got some MOD 25 microfarad 50 volts here, and then MOD 50 microfarad 100 volt there, which is great. So still have to do the 3-prong and then probably add the safety diodes to the rectifier. But I think other than that and replacing this cap, we should be good, assuming there's no additional noise or anything that comes to play when I let this amp run for a while. So next up would be the Doghouse, stuffing those caps, and then I think we're about done with this thing. Really, really happy with how it came out. I mean, it totally restored the amp from what it looked like before. What a lucky thing that the owner still had all the original resistors. That's very rare when something gets shotgun like that. So cool, pretty happy with this. We'll move on. Quick side quest, I redid the 3-prong. I kept the original 3-prong. It's got that gray, kind of matches the vintage original one, so I left that. So this is where it came out right here. And we can see it looks like it was crimped before at one point lower down, and then they redid it and did it higher up. So that's not great. So I used one of the new, more modern cable glands that doesn't kind of require the special tool or any of that. These work really good for these kind of specific smaller chassis holes in this era of Fender. And then also redid, obviously, where the wires went since they were not done to code. So we got the black hot going to fuse tip, fuse sleeves going to switch. Other end of the switch is one of the end of the primaries, and then the other primary is going over here at this junction just to connect the neutral and the primary together. And then the death cap was removed, and the switch is otherwise out of circuit. So, and obviously a chassis ground, and I just put a little bit of isopropyl on it as well to make it a little bit less shiny. So anyways, there you go. Moving on to the doghouse. The last major project here is redoing the doghouse. So we've got the caps and the cap shells ready to be stuffed here. We are going to stick with the stock value. So I know some people like to raise the capacitor, the capacitance, specifically the first cap here up to like 40 microfarad. You get a bit more low end that way. But we're going to stick to way this amp was originally designed. So 8 microfarad, 475 volt. That's going to be for there. And then 20 microfarad, 500 volts for all of these caps here. So that'll be good to go. And then resistor wise, this circuit is again a little bit weird. This 1K, it's basically in place of a choke. So I've got a bigger, this is actually a 5-watt resistor here. So we got a 1K 5-watt that'll be up in LA. This actually might be a 3-watt, either 5-watt or 3-watt. I can't remember off the top of my head, but either way, it'll be sufficient. And then the other small resistors here are both 2-watt Vishay power metal films. So those will go there. So let's get to work. I'm just going to time lapse it all. So for you guys, it'll be maybe 15 seconds. For me, it'll be probably an hour. So let's get to it. All right, so the doghouse is all done, all stuffed. Everything looks very good here. Can kind of lean it so you guys can see. Very obvious and clearly stuffed when you look at it from the sides. So there's nothing, no deception there. It's very obvious. And then new resistors installed. All that looks really good. And then for further confirmation in the doghouse, always leave a note so you can see cap stuffed in September. And then referencing my YouTube channel so they can look that up or just reach out to me directly. And then mention their MODs, and then the values 20 microfarad and 8 microfarad in the doghouse, 50 microfarad bias cap, and then 25 microfarad cathode bypass caps. So, in 10, 15 years, whatever else, maybe when this amp is back in for a recap with somebody other than me, they'll be able to watch the video that you're watching right now, which is kind of cool. And again, this is just for fun. This is something the owner was interested in. He had the original caps, and I was willing to do it. So here we are. There's no, people read way too much into this sort of stuff. You don't like it, that's totally fine. You don't have to do it. The owner wanted it, and I did it. So there you go. It is what it is. Let's move on. I went ahead and just let the amp run for a while. It's sounding great, to be honest. Just kind of want to get some heat into it and hopefully coax out any noisy resistors so we can tackle those while it's here on the bench with me. Now, this is, bound to be the case with a bunch of vintage carbon comps. Totally expected from the very beginning that we would run into at least one or two. And it seems the problem area, and when I say problem, just a little bit of artifacts on idle, very quiet. You'd have to really listen very carefully to pick it out at all, but I want this to be as perfect as possible for the owner. So I narrowed it down to this area, very simple. Pull V1, noise still there. Pull V2, noise is gone. Okay, it's somewhere around V2. Plate resistors is almost always going to be the location. I did do some more scientific testing with the this cool little, I'll put the link to this in the description. It's basically a little wireless guitar amplifier / Bluetooth amp that you can get off Amazon. And then I built a little rig here with a 1/4 inch, and then one end goes to ground and the other end is an alligator clip with a 0.1 630 volt cap in series. And you can kind of just place it anywhere within the circuit and just kind of isolate the noise in that area through the speaker. So kind of a fun little trick there. I didn't film any of it, unfortunately. I should have. But yeah, just kind of the 100K and the 15K were the problem areas. 100K less so, 15K more so. So we're going to replace both of them. I've got some vintage carbon comp replacements that we can throw in there. And we'll want to confirm they're good to go. Do the same thing, let them heat soak and all of that to final, before we make the final call. But yeah, I have no doubt that we'll be able to fix that, no problem. So from here, just go ahead and turn the amp off, swap those resistors, do the testing, and then the last thing really left for this is just to wait for the replacement blue molded, and we should be good to go. So let's get to it. Vintage Allen Bradley 100K installed, and the amp still sounds dead quiet to me. I don't hear anything. I've got the cabinet just about 2 feet from my head, and it's dead quiet in here. So that's great. Definitely. This thing, even dimed, is not that loud, so that's good. So I think it was really mainly the 15K that was our problem. So let's go ahead and try my replacement Allen Bradley and see if that is equally as quiet as this Vishay, hopefully. Perfect. Okay, that sounds great right off the rip. Again, I hear essentially nothing. Very, very quiet idle on this amplifier now, but these resistors are not warm, so we'll let it run for a while to fully confirm, but otherwise I'm pretty happy with that. So I guess next time you guys will be seeing me, we'll be installing the blue molded once that comes in. Still waiting on the blue molded to replace this cap over here, but in the meantime, I spoke to the owner again, and he wants me to move forward with doing safety diodes on the rectifier tube socket as well as 470 ohm screen grid resistors. So let's go ahead and knock that out real quick. Cool, screen grid resistors added, safety diodes added, so we're good to go. Just waiting for that last blue molded, final install, and then back to the owner. Really happy with how this project's come out. And here is the replacement blue molded. So 0.1, 200 volt for this position should be perfect. And it did measure just bang on. These caps are so solid. Every single one I've ever measured or seen measured, just always within like 5% tolerance. These are so impressive. So let's pull this out, put the blue molded in, and then also while we're there, we will swap the 0.01 cap right here. Originally right in this position. For some reason it was replaced. I don't know if it's got a problem or not, but we'll swap it. And just to make sure, because this is the original cap, just like all the original resistors were swapped and they were fine. So we'll just assume that that's the case there as well. Do some more testing and then we are all done. So let's go ahead and get solder iron going and get this piece swapped. Perfect. That does it. Fully restored. The board now looks so much better. And now all that's left is just to play the amp, test it, make sure it's working okay, and give it back to the owner. So let's go ahead and hear it and close this sucker out. Start on the normal channel real quick. Doesn't turn on until about 2.5. Alright, let's try the bright channel. I'm sweating to death. It is probably 100 degrees in this garage right now. So anyways, there's the amp. Quick demo, not the best, but the thing sounds awesome, raucous, wild, crazy, and really fun. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Subscribe for more, and until next time, see ya.